Good morning. My name is Jeff, and I'm an alcoholic. Can you hear me? Good. My sponsor has instructed me, when given the privilege of speaking at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, to give your sobriety date. So due to God, AA, and sponsorship, my sobriety date is March 16th, 1992. And I say that because Alcoholics Anonymous works. If I was giving sobriety dates based upon my own efforts and my own ideas, it would change every 3 days. So I want to thank the Maryland State Convention for bringing me in. It's certainly an honor to do anything in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to thank Victor, my host, and I want to thank Amy, who's been sharing the duties with him. I had a beautiful basket in my room of all kinds of crab products I can make. I'm telling you what, I can make crab soup, crab chips, crab dip, crab donuts. I need crab. I don't have that. That kind of sounded bad, didn't it? I'll let you form your own joke on that one. But it's been nice. I got in a little late, and I apologize. I missed the meeting last night. My flight was canceled, and I was a little indignant about that. I went storming up to the desk to find out why my flight had been canceled. Because as alcoholics, we tend to take things personally. I tend to think that Northwest Airlines is like, hey, look, Jeff's on this flight. Let's screw around with him and cancel it. So I went up and I'm like, what's going on? Why was the flight canceled? Why wasn't I notified? And they gave me an answer that you have no comeback for. It's like, well, there was mechanical problems. I'm going to accept that excuse. I'd rather be here than in the air. We went out to dinner last night. Amy, Victor, myself, Brandon, and Dave. We had an impromptu prayer meeting. Amy was driving. The rest of us were praying. And God listened. So anyway, I'm going to jump in. I'm alcoholic, and I'm going to tell you right at the outset that I don't speak a lot about my upbringing because it's kind of boring, and I don't think it really has anything to do with my alcoholism. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I've heard speakers, and I'm envious of them, that can get up and they can paint their childhood out, that they're so poetic about it, and they have insight, and I always wanted to be like that. And they can, I've heard people, and I grew up in small town USA, and every year the leaves turn a crisp golden brown, and they flutter to the earth like an angel missing one wing. And I listen to that kind of stuff, and I'm like, wow. And I didn't have insights like that as a child. When leaves were fluttering to the earth, this was my thought process. Man, I'm going to have to rake, and just whine in. And so I don't have anything. I didn't grow up in a dysfunctional home necessarily, unless, as my sponsor pointed out, the minute I arrived, it became dysfunctional. But two parents, very normal for the most part. They gave me everything that I needed, never anything that I wanted, because it's impossible as an alcoholic to give me everything I want, because I always change the rules and change the game. By my nature, I am restless, irritable, and discontent, and I was like that long before I ever drank. I've been feeling that way all my life, trying to find a solution to it. And when I say I'm restless, irritable, and discontent, I mean just this. I'm restless. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need, but this isn't it. Now I'm going to move, change this, do this. I'm discontent. I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of other people looking better than me, and I'm irritable. Did I say irritable? I gave the wrong description, didn't I? All right, let's try this again. I'm irritable, and I'm mad at people, and I'm discontent. I'm never happy with the things that I have in my life, ever. And you have people in your life pointing, Jeff, you should be grateful. You have this, this, and this. It's not that, though. It's what I don't have that I think about. So I spend my life, and I'm trying to find a way to fix this. And I wasn't a conscious decision, but I know this. I want to describe myself pre-drinking. I want to talk to you a little bit about what I was like prior to when I ever drank. And this is exactly what I was like. I walked around with this feeling of inadequacy. I walked around with this feeling of restlessness, like I said, and this feeling of paranoia and guilt and anxiety and all these different things. And all these emotions would just kind of freeball out there and just go, go, go. And I could never understand. I have this habit of comparing the way that I feel to the way other people look. And they always look better than I feel, just in everything they do. And I've been doing this my whole life. I remember getting to school in the first grade, and I was excited, and I got my little bag of school supplies, and I show up, and right away it just seemed like everyone was clicking better. You know what I mean? It's just everybody seems to click, and that's not the way it is, but that's my perception of things. And they know each other, and they're high-fiving, and I don't know that people were doing that in first grade, but that's how it seemed, and sounds good at the podium. people are interacting well, you know, and I sit down and I got my little school supplies and I look over to the guy next to me and immediately it's like I'm not measuring up. You know, I pull out my crayons and I have the 8 basic color crayons. You know what I'm talking about, the little box, Crayolas? Guy next to me he's got a crate of crayons, right? I'm telling you, man, he's got like 26 shades of blue alone. And fax machine on the back, email capacity. And I'm thinking, I don't, you know, my parents made more money, if this, if that, if whatever, maybe I would feel a little different. So I set out to fix what was wrong with me. Now, looking from the outside in, you'd have called me ambitious. Boy, look at Jeff. He does a lot of things, because I did, man. I was in sports, I was in band, I was in plays, you name it, wrestling, football, you name it, and I was going out for it. But the problem is, if you'd have looked just a little bit closer, you'd have found that I tend to quit things about 2 weeks in. I'm a sprinter by my nature, you know what I mean? And life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. So when the gun goes off, I take off, man. I'm fast, and I get out in front of the crowd, and I may get cocky and taunt people and turn around and run backwards. And but I get tired. Like, well, that's enough of this. And I sit down, and everybody, they go on by me. It's like, what's going on? I want to be the best at everything I do. I don't know where this came from. It wasn't ingrained in me, but I want to be the best. And if I can't be the best, I quit. There's one little asterisk I should put onto that, though. I want to be the best without actually practicing. I just want to be a natural. And I'm not a natural at anything. So I try things and get my feelings hurt real easily. And so as a result, I tried a lot of things and I quit a lot of things. When I was 15, I finally found something that would change the way I feel, that seemed to fix this problem that I've been having my whole life. And before I start this, I don't want to paint out that my childhood was by any means some terrible, unhappy thing, but it was just me, and it's just who I was, and it was the way I felt. When I was 15, I had the opportunity to drink, and I went out with some friends. I'd gotten into high school, and I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be accepted by people, and I wanted to feel okay, and it looked like cool people were drinking. And so when somebody asked me to go drinking, I was like, sure, I'll go, let's do it. And of course, the friends that I had, they didn't actually have any booze, so they're looking at me like, well, what are we going to do? And just to keep my first drinking experience, this was my thought pattern. Hey, my grandma's sick. I could go up there, sneak into her basement, and steal some booze from her basement. Wouldn't that be neat? And yeah, that'd be great, Jeff. Good luck making that amends later on, and which I did. And that's what we did. We went up and stole some alcohol, and it was some kind of whiskey. I don't remember what. And we went out and drank. And I plugged my nose because I could tell by the smell this wasn't going to agree with me. Because I want to be cool. And you're cool walking around like this all night. And we started drinking. And we slammed this stuff down really fast. And we got done. I looked at my friend. I said, I don't feel anything. How about you? He's like, no. I'm like, we must have extremely high tolerance to this stuff. Let's go get some more. And that's the last thing I remember that night. Foggy images from there on out. And I remember the next morning waking up, not quite sure how I'd gotten home. And I remember when, you know how you start to piece together the night? Because it's a weird feeling, your first blackout. It's just as strange as, oh my God, what, did somebody drug me or something? Because you can't fathom that it was the alcohol. And I remember starting to call my friends and try and piece together this night. And the things that they were telling me that we had gone and done were just amazing. Because, like I said, by my nature, I'm not like that. I'm not very outgoing by my nature. I'm too shy. I'm too worried about what people think of me. And I don't do crazy things. I'm always too fearful of, I might get hurt. And I have these emotions I walk around with, and I despise them. I've walked around my whole life wishing I was somebody else, wishing I was you, wishing I was the guy in the back, wishing I was anyone but me. And all of a sudden, when these people are telling me stuff, that we'd gone out and did things and gotten drunk, and we drove by a train, which sounded a lot wilder the next morning. It doesn't sound wild when I'm saying it in front of this many people, but I think we'd cut in front of it. You know what I'm saying? The train was coming, and we did one of those Dukes of Hazzard moves. And but they're telling me about all these different things that I had done, and I just couldn't believe it. They're like, oh, Jeff, you got emotional, and you were crying, and I can do without hearing that. And you punched some guy in the face. Some guy asked you for a smoke, and you punched him in the face. I'm like, oh, my God, I punched a guy in the face? I must have laid this poor guy out. They're like, no, he just laughed. But the bottom line is that, I don't know of no better way to say it, so I will take a line out of Bill's story. I had arrived. I was like, this is it. I didn't even remember what had happened, and I had arrived. You know why? Because Monday, people I didn't know knew me were talking to me. Monday, I felt accepted for the first time, and I could not wait to get out and do that again. And that's exactly what I did. give you an idea of what drinking can do for me. Let me give you an example. I remember going out in high school, and this is my thought pattern. I'm walking around, I'm very self-conscious, I'm very sensitive. You know, when I say I'm sensitive, I mean if you don't say hello to me in the correct manner, I form a resentment against you. Boy, that didn't seem like a sincere hello. What the hell is your problem, you know? Anything can set me off. You're talking to so-and-so more than you're talking to me. I don't know what the deal is. So this is the way I am sober. My mind races a lot. I'm standing at a party, and I'm looking around, and I feel inadequate. And I'm sizing up the room. You ever do this? You size up the room, and I'm looking around. It's like, my God, I'm the only person here in a long-sleeve shirt. I can't believe, what was I thinking? It's the middle of summer. And then I catch a reflection of myself, and I think, oh, I should have cut my hair. Why do I always procrastinate so bad? I can't believe this. And I don't feel very comfortable at all. And at some point during the line, someone's going to toss you a beer. And don't do that to me. I'm self-conscious enough as it is. I freak out when somebody tosses me a beer because I'm worried I'm going to drop it. And everybody, you got to remember, I'm self-centered by nature. So I assume what everybody's doing is just watching me, waiting to pass judgment. So you toss me a beer, and it's like, oh, my God, ugh. And you catch it, thank God, and you start drinking. Now, somewhere along the lines, at about the third or the fourth, there's something that happens to me. Something happens that's magical. I know of no better way to say it, but I seem to stand up straight, right? And I look around, and I all of a sudden feel comfortable. This long-sleeve shirt, I rip it off like Hulk Hogan, man. Check out the pecs, even though they're not there. I feel good all of a sudden. And I look around the room, and there was always a her in my life. When I say a her, I mean some girl I was pursuing. I've had a her in my life since preschool. And when I say I was pursuing her, I mean I'm staring at her intently from across the room. And if by chance she would look my way, I'd turn away. Oh. And I didn't date a lot. But I see her. And I'm not intimidated by her, and I'm not worried about what she thinks about me, and I'm certainly not worried about whether or not she's going to say yes when I ask her out, because she's honored I even notice her. And go up, ask her out, excuse me, blah, 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 here's who I am, aren't I cool? And what do you think about going out with me? I got a boyfriend. Doesn't bother me at all. Lock her in the bathroom till she says yes, and I don't in any way think that's a problem. There's always some guy who intimidates me. There's always the biggest guy in the room, and I'm always looking, and I'm always fearful that something's going to happen. This guy's going to want to fight me, I know that. I got a big mouth, and I'm going to snap off and say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and this guy's going to be trouble. When I'm drunk, I don't worry about him. I walk up and confront danger head on. Hey, you looking for trouble? Look no further than right here, buddy. You see the pecs? And I like the way it makes me feel. Bottom line, I like the way alcohol makes me feel. And all of these emotions that I hate, this person that I am when I'm sober, it goes away. And I finally, you ever get drunk and I used to think that the real Jeff came out when I was drinking. This is the person I want to be. I'm witty, I'm funny, I'm intelligent. I can talk about anything. I sat at a party one time for a half hour telling this guy about truck driving, who, by the way, was a truck driver himself. And you know what my basis for that whole thing was? Is I just saw Smokey and the Bandit. And I think I'm some kind of expert. We call them Smokies, mister. Now, I want to touch on alcoholism because there's a couple facets to it, and the book describes it very well. The first thing about my drinking is that I have something that our book and Dr. Silkworth call a phenomenon of craving. I read that, right by it. That doesn't apply to me, till I had a sponsor explain it to me and what it means. It means when alcohol enters into my body, there's a phenomenon of craving that develops, an unexplainable urge that tells me to get more. That's why when I would go out with very good intentions all the time, I never went out to do the things I did. I always went out just to have fun. But I drink 3, I drink 4, I drink 5. I get there, and every alcoholic in the room knows where there is. I don't have to explain it to you. And something clicks and tells me to keep going. And I know I promised myself and promised my friends that I was going to stop, but something says just keep going. Because if 5 make you feel this good, man, 5 more will really do a number on you. And they do a number on me, but not the number I was expecting. Now, when you drink like that with a seeming inability to control your drinking, eventually you're going to start getting in trouble. And I got in a lot of trouble because of my drinking and going out. And as I said just a minute ago, I talk about intentions. I always went out with the idea of having fun and relaxing and just, and that's never what happened. My drinking always ended badly. Always ended badly. It always ended. You know blackouts? You ever notice blackouts are always bad? Ever. You ever woke up and had something good told to you? And, God, what did I do from midnight on? Man, you were down at the hospital reading stories to little blind children. I've never had that told to me. My night ended a couple different ways, passing out, which was usually top of list. For some reason, I always got drunk and wanted to make long-distance phone calls to people I barely knew and express my love. Hey, you remember me? I love you, man. Stuff like that. But keep in mind now, my mentality is that good intentions should excuse bad actions. I've thought it my whole life, and I can't understand why people don't take that philosophy. I didn't intend to say that to you last night. Hey, sorry. And I expect people to be like, oh, okay, thanks. You cussed me out for 15 minutes, but you didn't intend for it to hurt my feelings? Well, cool then. Hey, look, I know I got sick and threw up in your washing machine, but I thought it was the toilet. And I don't understand why people are, oh, hey, everybody, Jeff thought it was the toilet. We thought you were being a jerk, but hey, everything's cool now. And there's been a lot of damage, a lot of relationships that were, just torn apart and opportunities lost and different things like that. But what I want to state about alcoholism is this. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, this was my thought pattern, is that alcoholics were people that were good people. They were good people, and then they started drinking, and alcohol took them down a terrible road, and they did bad things, and they sold out their morals and their ethics. Then they got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they got their life straightened out, and now they're back to being good people. And when I heard that, when I was sitting in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't identify. I was not a good person prior to drinking, and drinking didn't take me down a road. I was a bad person, or so I thought. And I was sick, and something was wrong with me, and I've been searching for a solution to this problem, and alcohol was it. So when people came out of the woods, these do-gooders that start telling, Jeff, you drink too much, Jeff, you're obnoxious when you drink, things like that. You're not a better driver when you're drunk. Trying to throw falsehoods like that at me. I thought in the back of my mind, you don't understand. That's not it at all, because I don't get sober and get better. I don't get sober and get manageable. You know what I'm saying? And so, anyway, so here I am, and I've got this phenomenon of craving. Now, you get into enough trouble, you do enough things, and eventually you start thinking, maybe I should quit drinking. This doesn't seem to be, for whatever reason, and I tried all the different theories. I tried, switching brands and switching this and that, and it wasn't working. So I get to a point where I decide I'm going to quit drinking. Now, in the back of my mind, I've always thought I can do anything I put my mind to. Anything. I've just never put my mind to anything. That's why I've never done anything. And so now comes the second part of the illness, a mental obsession of the mind to drink alcohol. When I read that, I thought, I'm not like that. I don't sit around shaking, needing to drink. I'm not anything like that. I'm not like Victor was. And told him I was going to get him. I'm not like that. But it doesn't mean that. It means this. It means despite all the trouble I got into, despite all the consequences that are heavily weighing on me if I drink again, my mind pushes all of that aside for the insane idea that it is okay to drink this time. And it makes perfect sense to me when I'm going in. You ever been on a road trip? And one of the things I used to do when I would quit drinking, and I've had a lot of quitting drinking episodes, is I tell everybody. Because when I fail eventually, I apparently want everyone to know that I failed. And so I'm always telling everybody, people I don't even know, people cutting my hair, hey, guess what, I quit drinking. And I think you do it with good intention, like your buddies are going to help you stay sober, but that doesn't work. But I remember being out on a road trip one time in Minneapolis, and I was drinking. And I remember somebody questioning me, I thought you quit drinking. Well, I did, but just when I'm home, I'm on the road now, and I hung around people that made sense to them. They're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I'm going to get drunk and disappear for about 3 days, and then we'll see you later. So I have this mental obsession of the mind, and now I'm trapped in a cycle called alcoholism. Trapped in it. I try and get sober, and I can't make it, and a mental obsession of the mind takes over, and eventually it tells me to take that first drink, and I do, and alcohol goes into my body. A phenomenon of craving develops that I can't control. I drink too much. I do things I swore I wouldn't do. Go places I don't want to go. Hurt people I don't want to hurt. Wake up the next morning feeling remorseful, genuinely remorseful, with a firm ideal it will not happen again. And it doesn't for 24 hours, for a week sometimes, but eventually it gets me back. Cut to the chase, what happened for me was I was convinced that my problem, I grew up in Minot, North Dakota. You may not know where Jamestown is, but I know you know where Minot is. It's by Jamestown. It's in North Dakota, put it that way. We're up north somewhere. And I was convinced that it was Minot. I grew up in Minot, bad influences, living with my parents. This isn't the way to go. I need to get away. I need to go off somewhere else. I need to go to college. That's what I'll do. I'll get off a fresh start. I've walked around with an ideal. I put a lot of emphasis upon what other people think of me. You know what I mean? I don't like myself. I know why today, because of AA. I don't like myself very much, and so it's very important to me that I gain other people's approval, most of whom I don't even like in the first place, but it's important to me that they like me. And I mean everybody. I mean everybody. 20 people in a room and 19 like me. Who do you think I'm going to? Mr. Number 20. What in the hell is your problem? All these people think I'm wonderful. Why can't you? And I demand it. And so I get down to college, and I've got all these ideals on how things are going to be different this time. And I meant it this time. I've spent my whole life thinking that. It's always going to be different Monday, next week, after this, after Christmas break, after I get into the 5th grade. Everything will be wonderful. But now I'm moving away, and everything's going to be good. And I got down to college. I won't even go into my first year, but I will tell you that at the end of it, I had 5 more credits than when I started. Hey, if I hadn't home ec, baby. Got into my second year, and now, by God, things are going to be different. That first year, but you're supposed to screw around your first year of college. It'll all be wonderful. And I made probably the firmest resolution I'd ever mentally made that I would quit drinking. And I'm not going to worry about what people think. It's time to buckle down. It's time to do, all these different things. And I got down to college. I was sitting in my dorm room. Alcoholics traditionally will do anything to avoid the task at hand. What I mean by that is I'm supposed to be studying. I've made a firm oath. I'm going to study. I'm going to, buckle down. And what I do is I get into my room, and I spend all my time doing meaningless tasks that allow me to avoid studying. I got my books organized. I'm sharpening pencils. I'm combing my hair. I'm mopping the floor. I'm doing anything but actually reading the book that's sitting in front of me. And my books were always like that because they'd never been opened. And I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to get into this mode to study, and some friends of mine walked by, and all they said was, "Hey, we're going drinking. You want to go?" And here's my response: "Wait for me." And off I went. Because I don't have a mental defense against the first drink. I don't even have a mental hesitation against the first drink, apparently, because I was gone. And we went off, and I got way too intoxicated again. And you're not going to believe this, but her walked into the room that night again, and I looked at her, but something was different this time. I felt it, because before all those other times, I had misperceived things. I tend to do that a lot. I perceive things badly. Hell, my first suicide attempt was over a misinterpreted hello, and, oh, that's not what you meant? So I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking, tonight's the night. Everything changes tonight. And I went up to her, and I just barged in. She was probably talking to somebody I don't know. And I started telling her what I thought, what my hopes and dreams were. And I gave her my story, the long version. And let me suggest to you fellas, that's when you're dying of alcoholism, it's not good to let people into your innermost thoughts. And I'm blabbing on, and I'm telling her things like, I think about suicide a lot, but I'm not going to do it now that I met you. We're going to be happy together. And, she eventually, real sweet girl, looks at me, smiles, and said, "You scare me, and I want you to leave." And touche. I tend to overreact, another little symptom of my alcoholism. And I remember saying, "Oh, you want me to leave, huh? I'll leave. I'll kill myself. Ha ha. See how bad you feel in the morning when I'm dead." And that makes perfect sense to me, by the way. It's been my attitude my whole life. You can't do that to me. I'll run around and pull the roof down on my head on a spree. So I left and was going to kill myself, made a big scene. And you got to remember, I'm a week into my second year of school, and I don't know anybody, but I'm knocking on doors, and I'm cussing people out, and I'm telling them, "You're going to miss me when I'm gone, and you're sorry for the way you treated me." And, these guys have never met me. And by the way, I forgot to mention this. There's a lot of people. I want to welcome you if you're new, by the way. I usually do that at the front of the talk, but I do want to welcome you if you're new. I think that everything we do, in essence, is to reach out and carry a message, hopefully to new people. I mean, we all want to recover from alcoholism, but I believe I need to stay focused on the new people, and so I do want to welcome you if you're here and tell you that Alcoholics Anonymous has been the best thing that ever happened to me. But you may be wondering if you're an alcoholic or not. It's tough to know, and there's a lot of theories, there's questions, but if you're like me, I look at the 21 questions, and I just don't get it. Do you drink if you're stressed out? Yeah, who doesn't? Do you have any blackouts? None that I remember, and so they don't necessarily work, and they don't give me the information I need or the evidence that I need to prove if I'm alcoholic or not. Because you got to remember, I was very skeptical. All through my life, I've had a lot of theories on what's wrong with me, but alcoholism was never one of them. Ever. I've had a lot of theories that I would readily accept. You know, bipolarism, yeah, that's me. Schizophrenia, yeah, that's me. Bad childhood, that's me. Alcoholism, not it. Not it. And in the back of my mind, the reason I didn't have that is because alcohol helps me. That's what you don't get. So just back off the alcohol, pal. And here's a way to find out, by the way, if you're alcoholic or not. I'm going to give it to you in one question. And it's not about how much you drink. It's not about what happens to you when you drink. It's about this. Have you ever in your life had someone who cares about you, a family member, a teacher, a preacher, or whatever, give you a lecture on how much potential you have? Oh yeah, anyone nodding their head? Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous, let me assure you. I've been getting that talk my whole life, except I've been misinterpreting what it meant. I thought it was a good thing, and I've been walking around all my life like it's a good thing, like it's a get-out-of-jail-free card. Like, I've got a lot of potential. It's on every report card from years 1 through 12. And I think it should excuse me. People come up to me and say things like, Jeff, I asked you to do one simple job and you screwed it up. Can't you do anything right? My attitude is, hey, why don't you back off? Do you know how much potential I have? Just settle down. I'm here to tell you that potential's not a good thing. It means unused energy. I found that out in Alcoholics Anonymous when my sponsor blew my theory of why I didn't have to work the steps out because of my potential. And it means unused energy. And if you think about it, there's no one. We're by Gettysburg, and Lincoln gave a famous speech. Has Lincoln ever been described as having a lot of potential? No. You know why? He used his. You know what I mean? So people like me are walking around with these idiotic ideals that because I have a lot of potential and am dying of alcoholism, it all offsets and equals out in the end, and it doesn't. So I've left this party, and I remember thinking to myself, man, I just think I could have been somebody. I have potential, but it's all over now. I've just told everybody I'm going to kill myself, and I don't want to look like a liar. So you peer pressure yourself, and so I got back to my room. I was taking sleeping pills at the time, and I took a big handful of them. And I'm going to tell you right now, the alcoholics in the crowd should relate to this, but I felt really good about it. I took this handful, and I had this feeling come over me like, by God, I actually did what I said I was going to do. This is, boy, if you got to go out, I'm going out on a high note, let me tell you. And I sat there, and a buddy of mine had chased after me after I'd made this scene at this party. He comes in, he's like, what'd you do? And I'm feeling good about it. I'm like, hey, took all these sleeping pills, haha. And he's like, oh my God, I'll tell you what, we got to get you to a hospital because you got to talk to a priest, because if you don't, your soul's not going to be admitted to heaven. I'm so drunk at the moment, that made sense to me. Oh my God, we got to go right now. And off we went. We got to the hospital, and I'm going to tell you right now, there was no priest there, and it wasn't even a hospital. Well, it was some kind of hospital, special kind. And a nurse comes running out, frantic. I'm sure they'd called ahead and told them. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? And I took these pills, and I happened to have the bottle with me for some reason. And she's like, well, you know, let me see it. And I hand her the bottle, and she starts laughing. And I remember thinking, I'm really intoxicated, but I remember it clearly. And it's one of those times where you almost get so drunk you start thinking sober again. You know what I mean? It's like, man, I'm really drunk right now. This is something else. Tried to kill myself. That's wild. And I'm looking at this nurse, and I'm thinking, this is not the way I think nurses should act when you have a suicide attempt. You know, crying, yes, frantic, yes, but laughter, That seems a little unprofessional to me. And she holds up the bottle. She goes, Jeff, what you took was vitamin C tablets. And I actually felt really well the next morning, physically. If it wasn't for the padded room I found myself in, I'd have felt a lot better. Ended up in a psych ward. And I got people in my face telling me I drink too much, telling me that they think I'm alcoholic, and telling me all these different things. And I was to a point, I was 19 years old, and I thought, all right, maybe I am. So I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got there. And the type of group that I first went to was, it's called a call-up meeting. I don't know if you have them around here, but you get a leader, and they call up people out of the audience, and they share for 5 to 7 minutes. And I got there, and the first thing it was at a mall. A shopping mall, can you imagine? I was horrified by that because I figured they'd have a big neon sign that said Alcoholics Anonymous, and people would see me going in there, and I'd tarnish my big rep I'd built up of throwing up in washing machines and potential. And I got there, and there were all these people dressed up, suits and ties and dresses, and laughing and smoking, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, well, how am I going to find the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? Because I don't know where it is. They just told me this mall. And I assume they're keeping these poor bastards down in some basement somewhere or something. So I saunter over to this guy, he's a little taller than me, and in a real inconspicuous voice, I'm like, excuse me, can you tell me where the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous is? And the guy looks down at me with one of those AA grins that I'm sure you all saw, and he's like, this is the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said it really loud, right? I'm like, dude, keep it down, man. There's people everywhere. And he's like, no, these are all members, these are all us. And from there, I don't think it happened quite like this, but it seemed to me that, hey, I'm stepping, I'm breaking things. Makes me self-conscious that I'm cracking the stage. It seemed to me that he whistled. I don't think he did, but it seemed to me that he, hey, everybody, and everybody just lines up in single file, and I start shaking my hand and rattling off cliches. You know what I mean? Hey, I'm Bob. Keep it simple. And hey, I'm Tom. First things first. And I'm thinking, And the last guy in line comes up. He's like, hi, I'm Rick. I'm alcoholic. You may not know this, but you're the most important person here. And that one got me. I stepped back and I thought, my God, Rick, you're right, I am. Woo! I've known for a long time how important I am with all my potential, and obviously, Alcoholics Anonymous could benefit greatly from someone of my stature coming in. Why don't you get me some coffee, Snapper? That didn't happen, but that's what I was thinking. And they invite me into the meeting, and come on, the winners, we all sit up front. Yeah, I'll be in the back, thank you. The one little problem with the meeting, it was a real positive meeting. And I don't know about you, when you're dying of alcoholism, I'm not real interested in being around positive people. And the other thing that I didn't like was the humor. Because what people laughed at this meeting was not funny to me, let me tell you. Because again, you got to remember, I take things personally, and I assume you're jabbing me. So when someone would get up at the podium, it seemed to me what they would say is things like, yeah, when I was drinking, I was such an idiot, I'd bounce checks. And everybody would laugh. And I didn't think it was funny at all. I had like $110 in bounce checks out there at that very moment. I just wanted to stand up and say, so you all think my life's a big joke, huh? Well, I'm leaving. I'm going to kill myself, and this time I'm not taking vitamin C. The other thing that got me was there was a sign on their wall, and it said, do you have a sponsor? Next sign was, you bet I do, and the third sign was, because my best thinking got me here. And I didn't read the first two, I just read the last one, because that's the way I just go straight to the end. And that doesn't work on the steps, by the way, let me tell you. Oh, let's help others. Let's just go do that with no foundation. So I read this sign, my best thinking got me here, and I thought, my God, that's true too. My best thinking got me here. Alcoholism and whatever else, life threw everything it could at me, but my best thinking got me to Alcoholics Anonymous because I'm a survivor. And I remember at first I felt a little pride in that, just kind of chest swell up a little bit, nudge people. My best thinking got me here. What do you think of that, Tex? And I was coming home from the meeting, and it dawned on me, that's not a compliment. They don't intend it to be a compliment. Like, oh, my best, oh, okay, I see what you mean. Sons of bitches. So I had a bit of a resentment against Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks, Victor. And I decided, you know what, I don't need that anyway. I'll quit drinking on my own. And I went out on a 2-year crusade to quit drinking, and I don't have time to talk about, thank you, sir, talk about all the different things that I tried, but here's one, and I wouldn't suggest you try this. I'm in this mode, I'm going to quit drinking, and I can do it. I don't need to sit in a church basement to do it. So what I did is I went out, and I didn't like Schlitz beer when I was drinking. I drink it, but I didn't like it, and I'm not going to turn down booze. But I was not a big fan of Schlitz beer. So I went out and bought a case because I'm going to quit drinking, and I put it under my bed. And then I sat down and I thought, all right, you ever have those conversations with yourself? All right, Jeff, here's the deal. If you get so sick that you need to drink, then you got to drink this. 24 warm, nasty Schlitz beers. And I'm going to tell you right now, nobody is sick enough to drink 24 warm, nasty Schlitz beers. Wrong. Found out at 2 a.m. when my head is screaming at me, it doesn't really matter what it is. I'm just looking for relief. And so, end of it all, after that 2-year run of where I was able to put together 3 weeks of sobriety, was my longest, thank you. I ended up back in Alcoholics Anonymous. I ended up in treatment. I'm going to quick dab into that. This is how I got to treatment. I was meeting 4 different counselors, a psychiatrist, psychologist, a shrink, and somebody else. I don't know what the hell they were. And they're all telling me different things. And I was talking to my psychologist, and the heat was coming on. You know what I mean by that? It's like most people don't sober up out of any sincere desire to sober up. It's usually there's some heat pushing you. And there was heat pushing me. I was going to get kicked out of school, and bills were piling up, and my life was crumbling. And I thought, I need to get to treatment just to take a break. So I'm talking to them, and they say, yeah, we can get you in. That'll be fine. I said, well, hold on. If I'm going to do this, let's do it right. I want to go to the Betty Ford Clinic. And the guy's looking at me, and my reason for wanting to do that was if I got to do this, I want to meet famous people at least, because I think it's cool to meet famous people. And I always see these people on the news coming out of the Betty Ford Clinic. So I thought, yeah, that'll be cool. I'll show up there. Hell, I might marry one or something and not have to work. And anyway, I remember him saying to me, they're like, well, we have a treatment center in Mandan, North Dakota. I know you know where that is. And it's very exclusive, and it caters to professional athletes and movie stars in Mandan, North Dakota. But we're going to pull some strings and try and get you in. And I remember thinking, that would be awesome, man. That would just be great. So I got there. I'm probably one of the few people who lied to the excess on their intake interview because I didn't want to be rejected by this wonderful treatment center. And they let me in with open arms, and I remember running down the smoking room, looking around. It's like, well, what the hell? None of these people are famous. And I realized I'd been duped. But what it did is it introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 21, and I came back, and I remember bitter and mad and upset, and I couldn't believe my life had gotten to this point. But more importantly than that, I was hopeless, absolutely hopeless. And for the first time, I was scared. Because I'd always thought, I'll get it together someday. I'll figure things out. It'll be okay. And I realized I'm not going to get it together, and what I'm dealing with is going to kill me. And I'm not quite sure yet what I'm dealing with, but I need help badly, and I've tried a lot of different things. I've tried medications. I've taken tests with like 600 questions that supposedly diagnose what's wrong, and nothing seems to be setting in. That I identified with them about the way they drank. Yeah, I'd have drank with that guy. Sounds like he'd have been a blast, and not that guy though. He's crazy. And I'm listening to people's stories. The next thing I started to identify with was people's emotions. Jesus, I felt like that too. I did that. Alcoholics Anonymous in its first 6 months provided me with a couple of things: hope and identification. The idea that now maybe I understand what's wrong with me. For the first time in my life, the thought started to dance in my head that, maybe I am alcoholic. Maybe that's really what's wrong here. Because if alcoholism is what these people say it is, which is they're describing it as a living illness, I understand that. If it's a drinking problem, I don't, and I'm not in the right place. But it seems to me there could be something else here. Now, I am not someone who can get sober strictly on going to meetings. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying I'm not the type that can. And I would go to meetings and do what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? I had no accountability, no structure. I'd go when I felt like it, do what I felt like doing. I was under the philosophy that you can just throw problems on the table, and apparently they'll magically get fixed. And I found out that's not true because I threw my rent on the table and then got an eviction notice. So that didn't work. And eventually, as I have said, sobriety becomes unattainable for me, and it just becomes unbearable. Not unattainable, unbearable. And I found myself at 6 months of sobriety, stark raving mad. Stark raving mad, and I'm just like, I don't get it. And I went to a meeting one last time, and I remember I'm going to try A one more time, and then if it doesn't work, I'm killing myself or getting drunk or doing something, but this isn't it. And I got there and just threw it out there. I'm like, I'm dying, and I don't know what to do. And it went around the room, and nobody acknowledged that I was there, which was, I was forming resentments faster than you can count. And finally, this lady says to me, Jeff, I have an answer for you if you're willing to listen to it. I want you to get a sponsor. I want you to get a home group and actually attend, and I want you to quit worrying about not drinking for the rest of your life and just not drink today. And I thought, well, I appreciate your advice. It's not going to work for me, but thanks. But it was enough of a seed planted that I thought, you know what, she's probably right. I probably do need a sponsor. Now, alcoholics are egomaniacs with inferiority complexes. What that means is we can walk around with literally two conflicting, directly opposite emotions almost simultaneously going on at the same time. This baffled me for a long time. For example, you ever walk into a job interview and you think, God, I shouldn't even be here. These people are going to see right through me. I'm in way over my head. There's no way I could do this job. I'm not even remotely qualified to be here. Sit down, they interview you. Oh, I'm sorry, we've filled the position. And I walk out thinking this, fools, I'll show you. I got a lot of potential. And, you know. So here I am, and I'm thinking I got to kill myself. Nothing works. And now all of a sudden I flip to the other end of the spectrum of emotion, and I'm thinking I'm going to get a sponsor. Who am I going to bestow the greatest honor of their life with by sponsoring someone like me? And I start looking around the room and picking everybody apart. Nah, I don't like that guy. He shows up late. And looking around, and I finally decided upon the guy. I went up and asked him, and he looked down at me. He's like, "Nah, I'm busy." What? Busy? I've never heard anyone say that in Alcoholics. All right, well, I'll get his buddy. Hey, what about you? You think you could sponsor me? No, I got too many sponsees as it is. And I'm like, oh my God. And I went through 7 people, and 7 people said no. And it's actually kind of a good thing because it got that alcoholic determination going in me. It's like, by God, if I have to ask everyone in A to be my sponsor, I'm finding one. And it worked out well because I ended up asking a guy I never would have asked first, ever, because I knew who he was. I saw him come into me. He's always come in. He was all positive. He's always yakking about stuff he'd been doing in A. It's like, you need to cool it, man. That's way too much activity and action going on there. I'll be dying in the corner if you need me. But I was beaten down, and I remember going up to him and, asking him. And this guy was an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. You can spot active members of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a twinkle in their eye. They're the ones that barging up to you, shaking your hand. They're the ones in the first 5 minutes of talking to you have asked you 4 times if you have a sponsor. And that's what this guy was. And I went up to him, asked him to be my sponsor, and he goes, yeah, I'd be happy to. He said, there's a few things I'm going to ask you to do. That's how he said it, too, real nice, Oh, a few things you're going to ask. All right, yeah. A few things you're going to ask me to do. I can live with that. You need some help sometime moving or something? And that came true about 100 times over, but. He said, well, I'll tell you, I want you to join my home group. I think it's important you have one, and I want to meet with you once a week. If I'm going to help you, I need to meet with you and know what's going on. Well, that all made sense. I thought, sure, that's fine. And so first thing we did is we would start meeting. And for about a month, we would meet, and he'd let me whine, and I'd go on and on about how I'd been victimized, and I had potential, and I could have been something once, but now I'm, destitute for a life of misery, and it doesn't work for people like me, and all these different things I would go on about. And then eventually he'd pull out the book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they'd say, well, we're going to read this, so follow along. And I'd sit over there, and my first thought was, I can read. Why don't you don't need to read this to me. I can read. But I found out something. I retain a lot more when I'm reading it with someone else, and they're reading it, and I'm just following along. And we would go through that, and he would explain things to me. I found out a secret I hadn't found out in 6 months of sobriety. How to do the steps is hidden in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Who knew? That's where you find out how to do these damn things. Okay. And he would walk me through them. We got a home group, and he talked to me, stressed that this is how he put it, we're going to have you participate in your recovery, Jeff. We're going to participate in your recovery. All right, I don't know what that means, but it sounds good. And so he'd say, okay, well, I'm going to pick you up when we're headed to the meeting. Now, our meeting was on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, and he would pick me up at 6:30. What in the hell? I'm like, 6, that's a little early. And we'd get down there and he'd say, well, we're going to set up the meeting and get everything ready to go. Then we're going to stand at the door and we're going to welcome new people. I'd be like, uh-huh. Well, there's just one problem with that. It's 7 o'clock and there's nobody here. So do you see a problem here? And he's like, what you do in Alcoholics Anonymous is you take the action and the results follow. Oh, okay, I don't know what that means either and don't care. But a funny thing happened. We'd set up the meeting and stand there like buffoons at the door for a couple weeks. And then about the third week, we were standing there as I'm, begrudgingly judging everything he's doing. And here comes this busload of new people. Hey, what the hell are you doing here? Well, we heard you were down here welcoming people, so here we are. And we're standing there to welcome them. And a meeting that at the time, I think there was 12 people going. And I'm not it's not about numbers for me, but it's about helping people. So a meeting of 12 people blossomed to a meeting. There was 90 going for a while. And because we were standing there taking right actions, because when you have a group that presents a solution to alcoholism, people gravitate towards it. And so here I am, and I'm learning all these different things, and he'd have me going places. Come on, we're going to speak at the hospital. All right, fine. They wouldn't tell me it was out of town, 200 miles. I'd be like, God. And I'd be in the car, and then it would be my sponsor and 3 of his sponsees. And the good one, the good sponsee, you know who he is. It wasn't me, I'll tell you. He'd be up front, because he'd gotten there early, and they hadn't had to wait on him like me. And I remember about 30 miles into this hideously long journey, he'd pull out As Bill Sees It. And he'd go, hey, everybody, I got an idea. How about I read from As Bill Sees It? And then you guys can guess what it's from. Is it from the Big Book, the 12 and 12, the Grapevine article, or a letter? Sound like fun? And my sponsor, Scott, of course, be, oh, great idea, Chris. And I'm back there thinking, what in the hell? This is rocketed into the 4th dimension? My God. I don't know if this is going to cut it for me. Say what you want about drinking, but it was never dull. I've been arrested in Mexico. I got kidnapped by a Marine one time. Not podium-approved stories, but... and now I'm sitting in this car, driving to a hospital, playing the game of guess what writing as Bill, whatever the hell. The saving grace for me is that Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't care what you think. It doesn't. God doesn't care what you think necessarily. They care more about what you do. And I was doing the right action, begrudgingly, judgingly, you name it. I was pissed off, convinced it's not helping, all these different things. But I'm in the car, I'm going where we're supposed to go, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. As a result, when you take the action, the results follow. And what happened for me was I started to feel better. For the first time in my life, I started to feel like maybe Alcoholics Anonymous is the place I'm supposed to be. Maybe this sponsor's not secretly out to screw me. Maybe his motive is just to be helpful. Maybe if I stay here, I can finally get better from what I've been suffering from all my life. And that's exactly what I learned back then. And I did just what that lady had told me that night. I had thrown that plea for help on the table. I had a sponsor, I had a home group, and I didn't drink one day at a time. Now, there's more to it than that, but I don't want to scare off new people, so I'm going to let you think that's all you got to do. It's real easy. Got to about a year's sobriety, and I went to my sponsor, and I said, something's missing. I don't know what it is. I feel okay, but something's missing. I don't know what am I not doing? He said, well, you need to start working with people. Well, what do you mean, working with people? Well, you need to actively try and carry a message to people and try and help them get sober. All right, well, how do I do that? Well, you start off small. Shake people's hands. Ask them how their day was. Give them a ride. Ask them how their day was. But, Scott, who cares? Really. I got myself to think about here. My disease is rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness. That means that I've heard it described this way, and I like it best. You know that you get those periscopes on a submarine? Here's the way my periscope works. I've got one, and it's out, except it's turned right on me. So no matter where I go, what the hell, all that's out there is me. And I need help. So I have to take an interest in someone else. And it does start small. And I don't know if it ever gets bigger, to be honest with you, because I think regardless of what you're doing in Alcoholics Anonymous, thank you very much, Victor, the ultimate goal is to carry a message. Whether you're standing at a podium or whether you're sitting at a Denny's, you're doing the same thing, just different group. So I remember saying, all right, I'll do it. And you know why I did it? Because I wanted my sponsor to like me. I didn't think it was going to, I knew that wasn't going to, it's not going to help me to try and help someone else. Trust me, I know. I'm going to get taken advantage of and screwed. I know it. But I wanted my sponsor to like me, so I started doing what he told me to do. So I would go and I would pick people up and pick them up at jail and then bring them to the meeting. And we'd drive in silence, and be like, how you doing? And smoke. And I'd get to the meeting, I'd run to my sponsor, and I'd be like, well, that was a waste of time. Well, what happened? Nothing. The guy didn't ask me anything. He just sat over there like a moron. There was 2 morons in that car, Jeff. I'd be like, what do I do? He's like, well, ask him what's going on. Ask him about his day. It's like he's in jail. I don't want to offend him. So I get back in the car, and now I'm going to tell you something about new people. They don't make it easy on you either. New people give you 1-syllable monotone answers. So I'm over there and I'm scrambling. I'm not a good conversationalist by nature. I'm way too scatterbrained and I'm too focused on myself. And so I'm over there and I'm like, Scott told me to ask questions. All right. I'd be like, well, what'd you think of the meeting? Fine. All right. You gonna come next week? Yep. Great. And that's all I've got. I'm like, oh, what am I supposed to do? I never asked him the obvious question. What are you in for? Because I wanted to know, but I was afraid the answer would be, well, this guy giving me a ride home from Hague pissed me off, and I killed him. And that's what I would do, and drop him off. And eventually, this has been my experience, you work with others. You just try and get yourself out there doing something, shake people's hands, welcome them, give them a ride. Yeah, I'd be happy to come help you move on Saturday. Act better than you feel. Work with others, you start to help others because you learn a little bit. And say, hey, wait, I've had that problem. I can help you with this. Let me tell you what I did. This is what my sponsor told me to do. I thought he was crazy. I did it. It worked. You do it. What do you mean you think I'm crazy? I'm telling you it works. And then you start sponsoring people. And that's exactly been the progression of how things have gone for me. And that's been, I would argue, one of the most vital actions I've taken in the last 12 years of sobriety, is trying to be helpful to others. And I'm not saying the 12 steps are more important than the others. They're all equally important. But I really need to be out there and trying to help people. Now, what's happened because of that is I've been a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, a very active member, not by my own choosing, but by my sponsor's persistence in pushing me to do things that I need to, because my sponsor, like AA, cares more about what I do than how I feel. He doesn't sponsor me to be liked by me. He doesn't sponsor me and say, God, I should tell Jeff this, but it might hurt his feelings. He pushes me to do the right thing. And because I do that, I can live a somewhat clean life. Now, I'm in it. Let me tell you this right now. It's not been all roses because I'm in it and I screw things up. One thing about drinking that I'm going to tell you is it's a nice cover story for being a goof. You know what I mean? I haven't done a lot of things drunk and think, well, that was alcohol. But what happens when you start doing them sober? I was drinking and I got fired from a job. You know what I do? I spin it to be cool. What happened, Jeff? Well, the boss looked at me wrong. I told him to stick his job you know where. And I got friends that think that's cool. Hey, Jeff, good job. How you going to pay your rent? I have no idea. Cool. But what do you do when you're 2 years sober, an active member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you get fired from a job? Which that happened to the guy behind the podium. What do you do then? Well, Jeff, what happened? I'll tell you, I have a perception problem that tells me everyone's out to screw me, and waves of paranoia and fear just strangle me, and I don't like to work, so I just didn't go. I know you said keep my commitments. I didn't know it applied at work. What do you do then? You get drunk and you tell somebody off and you say some hurtful things. And what do? You call people, hey, I'm sorry. That was the alcohol talking, that wasn't me. What do you do when you're 3 years sober and you've just viciously assaulted your girlfriend verbally? What do you do then? How do you explain that? How do you explain to someone, you say, look, I didn't mean to do what I did. I didn't. There's this thing inside of me, and it's sometimes this ickiness, and it just comes out in venom. And I can't tell you how bad I feel, and I can't tell you that don't judge AA on my actions for God's sakes, because this isn't what it teaches us. It's hard to explain, and those have been things I've had to go through in sobriety. Sobriety for me has been, and recovery for me has been about a journey of life. It's not been about everything getting better and better and better. It's been about how to become manageable. It's been about how to learn life, how to live life and maintain enough comfortability in reality, in sobriety, so that I never have to go back to drinking. That's been the test. And to do that, I've got to have myself immersed in it. I've got to have a home group for accountability purposes. I've got to have people, I wasn't at my home group last night. By the way, I wasn't at my home group last night, and I called one of my friends and was checking in. How'd the meeting go? They all knew I was here. How'd the meeting go? I can't explain this. I just don't have time. But all I'm going to tell you is we have a meeting format that has 2 10-minute speakers, a break, and then a main speaker. All I'm going to tell you about how my home group went last night is that apparently we were invaded by an army of clowns. I mean, literally clowns with the big noses and the ears. The place we meet also houses the Clown Club or whatever the hell they are. And the good news is one of them got 24 hours today, so I don't know what that is. I don't even know what I'm doing. Anyway, so I have to have a home group and be accountable to people and do things, and so my journey throughout life and sobriety has been just that. And a lot of things have happened. I met a girl when I was 2 years sober, except she had something that no one else had ever had, which was apparent willingness to go out with me. And that's an attractive quality, let me assure you. And I went to my sponsor. I met her at work. I'd just gotten this job after being fired. And I met her at work, and I went to my sponsor. I met this girl. I want to date her. What do you think? He said, well, I'm going to tell you, Jeff, it's not a good idea to date people you work with. I said, you know me, Scott. I always listen to what you say. I went down and quit my job. Oh, that's not what he meant. You really got to be specific with me. You give me any wiggle room and I'm gone. And we started dating, and I was not emotionally ready to be in a relationship, I assure you, and tumultuous time. And I started spending a lot of time with her and expecting her to make me feel better. And you know what? She can't. And that's an unfair thing to do to somebody, because my alcoholism will engulf it. The only thing that can possibly fill it is the actions of Alcoholics Anonymous and developing a relationship with God. It's not going to be her. It's not going to be anything material. It's got to be that. And I didn't know that then, and I damn near died from it. The more I hung out with her, the worse I felt, the worse things got. I eventually got active in AA again and got going again, and you know what happened? Things got well again, and we started to get along, and we got stable again, and I finally got to a position where I felt comfortable asking my sponsor for permission to propose to her, because that's how I do things. I have to run it through a sponsor. My thinking is screwed, and it takes me 30 seconds to justify anything. So I have to have it out loud to somebody else to say, what do you think? If it's not the right time, tell me, and I'll wait. Tell me what to do. I want to do this right. My sponsor said, go ahead, and we got married. Not my sponsor and I, her and I. And not that close. Got married, want to have a baby. Decided that we don't want to wait. Let's have a baby right now. What the hell are we going to do? Let's have a baby. And we started trying. And I remember we must have went through, 10 pregnancy tests. Each time, convinced, all right, this is it. And it would come back negative, and each time it would just tear me up a little bit more. And it got to the end of the last test, and we took it, and I was convinced that this one was the one. And I had a big cigar. Vic, you'd appreciate this. I had a big cigar I was ready to light up, because, when your wife's pregnant, that's what you should do, is smoke a big cigar in front of her. And, what is it? And I remember my wife's face as she looked at me and told me it's negative. And I remember thinking, and I went to bed that night, and I was praying, and I remember talking to God saying, you know what? And I meant it, by the way. I do a lot of these what I call BS prayers where I'm trying to trick God, I'm cool with everything, God. Why don't you let my way happen now? And that doesn't work. But I remember talking to God saying, you know what? I'm okay with the fact if you don't want me to have children. I've beaten my head on this road enough, and I'm done. And I'll look at other options. I will do what you want me to do. If I'm supposed to adopt, maybe I'm supposed to own a bunch of dogs. I don't know. But I'm okay with your will. And it's hard for me to align my will with God's. Next morning we got up, and the test was in the garbage, and we just hadn't let it process because I'm impatient, and it was positive, and she was pregnant. And I was just floored. I thought, is that how things work? The next night I went to bed, and I said, God, I'm perfectly okay with the fact that I don't have a Lamborghini, and everything's good. It doesn't work, I'll tell you that right now. And we had a little baby boy, and God, now I'm a dad, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, and I've got all these doubts and paranoias and fears, because I'm emotional, and I'm temperamental, and I'm unstable, and can someone like me be in the life that AA has given me? Can I have a job and actually keep it? Because I got people depending on me now. Can I do the things I'm supposed to? And the answer is yes, despite the fact that I'm so emotional and neurotic, and my head races, and I'm unstable, and all these different things. If I stay here and do what I'm supposed to, I can go out there and lead a somewhat normal life. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. It's allowed me to participate in the game of life when I didn't think I could. And so I've got this child. And I'm going to tell you something. I was really terrified to have a child. I was afraid that I would come home on a bad day's work sometime, and in a fit of emotionalism, I would do or say something to that child that I would regret the rest of my life. Now, he's going to be 5 years old in a couple months. And I want to tell you what the relationship is like up until today. I was sitting there. I tell him I love him every day. And I was leaving for the trip, and I said, Mark, Daddy's going on a trip, and he had to ask me what present I would bring him back. Crab soup mix is what I'm doing. I'm cheap, by the way, too. And I said, Mark, Daddy loves you. And he goes, I know, Dad. I said, well, how do you know? And he said, because you tell me all the time. I'll tell you what, I about died the first time he said that. I'm like, that's the kind of father he has because of Alcoholics Anonymous? This is an all right deal. This is not bad. We ended up having a second child, a little daughter, and my wife thinks she has me wrapped around her finger, but she just doesn't do anything wrong. What can I do? We named my son, by the way, after Bill Wilson. His middle name is Wilson, Mark Wilson, and my wife shot down the idea of Abigail Dr. Bob, so she doesn't understand the importance of AA. Been a lot of ups and downs. I've had good jobs and bad jobs. I was fired again at 10 years sobriety. That's a tough one to swallow. But the difference was I had been through it, and by that time I knew Alcoholics Anonymous would take care of me. So when I was terminated from a job over a difference of opinion with a boss, and that means that I like me and she didn't, I called my sponsor, not in a fit of panic, but in a here's where I am. What do I need to do? And he laid out a program of action for me to take, and that's exactly what I did. And I found myself moving to Jamestown, North Dakota, and taking up a job I never knew I could do in a totally different field. And it's been exciting. It's been exciting. And I don't know what the future holds. I don't. And it doesn't really matter to me. It's not really my business to know. My business is to be helpful and to do what's asked of me in Alcoholics Anonymous and to try and help myself, help other people, and to inconvenience myself. The big thing I know, I've said at the beginning, I always wanted to be insightful. I'm not. I don't have insights. I'm too into myself. But I can tell you this. The biggest lesson I've ever learned in Alcoholics Anonymous is this, is that there are two things to spend in life, money and time. And money is always replaceable. It can always come back. Time is not. You spend your time with someone, you've given them something you will never get back. And if you do that enough, I believe, and my experience has taught me, that God will take care of you. It's that simple. Help other people and God takes care of you. So I don't have to worry about my future necessarily. I'm not a goal-orientated person. I just go do Alcoholics Anonymous and go in the direction that my sponsor and God seem to want me to go. I'm not a mindless robot by any means. I have plans and dreams and ambitions, but I have a pretty good life with that philosophy. I'm going to wrap this up in a couple minutes, but a couple things I want to touch on, why it's important for me to have an active sponsor. My sponsor, when I got to my 9th step and I was hee-hawing around about making amends because people had I shouldn't make amends to that guy, he screwed me, what the hell? And my sponsor pointed out to me, it's not about them, it's about you, and it's about you clearing off your side of the road. And I'm grateful he did it because I remember making amends to my parents, and I didn't want to. I did not want to make amends to my parents, but I did, and I'm glad he did because I got a call about 4 years ago saying, your mom's sick, something happened, stomach ache. And my mom's a hypochondriac, that's not a big deal. And I got a call the next day saying, you better get up here right away. I got up there, found out she had liver cancer. And I remember I'm like, well, just stunned. I'm like, well, what does it mean? It means she's going to die soon. And she did. She died 4 months later. What happened is during that 4 months, I didn't have to spend a lot of time making what I call deathbed amends. I didn't have to spend a lot of time letting my mom know, Mom, I know I've been a jackass my whole life, but I do appreciate you. I had done it. I had done it in Alcoholics Anonymous because my sponsor had made me. And my relationship with her was current. And when the last day came and a nurse came up to me and said, go in and talk to your mom, it'll be the last time you talk to her, I was able to take a breath, pray, and go in and talk to her. And just talk and not have to do anything. Just, Mom, my life's okay. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to stay in Alcoholics Anonymous. I know you like me better than my sister. I did. I said that. And she would have laughed. So those are the kind of things that Alcoholics Anonymous has allowed me to do. When I got here, I said that there was this person I wanted to be. And he was way out here. And this was the person I was. And I just hated it. Just hated the person. I always wanted to be this person. My growth in Alcoholics Anonymous has been this. Slowly but surely, I've learned lessons, I've matured, I've become a little bit more responsible, and I've started to inch towards this person that I wanted to be. But a funny thing is, and I didn't know would happen, is that the person I wanted to be has started to inch towards me as well. And they're getting closer and closer. It's a journey. I'm not there by any means, but it's getting closer and closer. And it's been a blast. It has really been a lot of fun. We are not a glum lot. Maryland is not a glum lot. I was out smoking with a lot of you. Do you all smoke? And there's a lot of laughter, and there's a lot of fun. And I think that's the way it should be, because we've suffered enough. It's time to laugh, and it's time to have some fun. And we're going to have a great time this weekend. Great speakers lined up for the weekend, and I'm looking forward to learning new things and meeting new people. I want to thank you very, very much for having me here. It's an honor to be in front of you. God bless.